The lecture hall buzzed with nervous energy. Rows of alien students sat in carefully arranged seats, their bodies a mix of shapes and colors that would seem impossible on any single planet. Soft clicks, chirps, and low hums of translation devices filled the air. At the front of the room, Professor Jaiwan adjusted his digital projector, his movements careful and deliberate. Jaiwan watched closely. He was an Orion student, his skin a shifting palette of blues and greens that changed with his emotions. Today, his skin flickered between a deep navy and a nervous light green. The young alien leaned forward, his multiple eyes focusing intently on the professor. The topic of today's lecture was unlike any other in the Interstellar Academy's history: humans, a species so controversial that merely mentioning them could cause tension in diplomatic circles. Today, Professor Jaiwan began, his voice steady. We will discuss a topic that has been carefully hidden from most galactic records, a species that has been completely banned from all organized conflicts for the past 200 years. The holographic display behind him flickered to life. Broken images appeared, fragments of historical records, most of them heavily redacted. Black lines crossed out entire paragraphs, leaving only scattered words visible. A student in the front row raised a hand. It was Hai-Jin, a centaurian with skin like polished crystal. Her voice was clear and sharp. "Professor, why are humans so different? Why are they the only species completely removed from galactic conflicts?" Professor Jaiwan smiled. It was a small smile, the kind that suggested he knew much more than he was willing to share. "An excellent question," he said. "But to understand humans, we must look beyond simple military history." The first image on the screen showed a group of humans. They looked almost unremarkable, bipedal creatures with soft skin, varied hair colors, and clothing that seemed both practical and strange. Nothing about their appearance suggested they would become a species feared across multiple star systems. Jaiwan's tentacle-like appendages twitched with curiosity. He had heard whispers about humans, stories passed down through generations, tales that seemed too impossible to be true. "Humans are not like other species," Professor Jaiwan continued. "They do not think about conflict the way we do. Where most species see boundaries, walls, and limitations, humans see opportunities. Where we see problems, they see solutions." Another image appeared. This one showed what looked like a diplomatic meeting. Humans stood in the center, surrounded by representatives from dozens of alien species. The humans weren't the largest. They weren't the most technologically advanced looking, but something about their posture suggested they were completely in control. "In every major galactic conflict where humans were involved," the professor explained, "something unusual happened. The conflict never ended the way anyone expected." Whispers broke out among the students. Jaiwan leaned even closer, his multiple eyes wide with excitement. Professor Jaiwan clicked to the next image. It was heavily redacted, with only a few words visible. "Diplomatic resolution, one line read. Unexpected outcome," said another. "Today," he said, his voice dropping to almost a whisper, "we will begin to uncover the real reason humans were banned from galactic conflicts, a reason that goes far beyond simple military strategy." The students sat in complete silence. Even the translation devices seemed to hold their breath. Jaiwan felt a shiver run through his body. His skin shifted to a deep, intense blue, the color of pure curiosity and anticipation. Whatever was coming next would change everything they understood about galactic history. Professor Jaiwan took a deep breath. "Let me tell you about humans," he said, "and why they are the most dangerous species in the known universe." The lecture ended, but the questions remained. Students packed their digital tablets and translation devices, their conversations a mix of excitement and confusion. Jaiwan stood near the back of the lecture hall, his blue-green skin still rippling with curiosity. Hai-Jin approached him, her crystal-like skin catching the artificial light of the academy. "Did you hear what the professor didn't say?" she asked, her voice low. Jaiwan's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. "Everything, and nothing, he replied. Outside the lecture hall, the Interstellar Academy stretched like a massive complex of learning. Alien architecture blended smooth curves with sharp angles, creating buildings that seemed to float and twist against the purple-orange sky of the Academy's home planet. In the library, rows of digital archives lined the walls. Holographic displays flickered with information from thousands of different civilizations. Most sections were carefully controlled, with access limited to specific research credentials. Hai-Jin knew exactly where to look. She had spent years learning how to navigate restricted information systems. Her fingers moved quickly across a data terminal, bypassing initial security checks with practiced ease. "Look," she whispered to Jae-won, pulling up a partially encrypted file. The file contained fragmented records about human military engagements, but these weren't typical war reports. Each document showed something strange, conflicts that ended in ways no one could predict. One report caught their attention. It described a territorial dispute between two alien confederacies, the Trell and the Vornax. Both species were known for their aggressive approach to conflict. Their wars typically lasted decades, with entire star systems reduced to dust. But this particular conflict had been different. A small human team of just 12 individuals had been accidentally included in diplomatic negotiations. The report was mostly redacted, but enough remained to tell a bizarre story. Within hours of the humans' arrival, the entire conflict changed. The Trell and Vornax, who had been fighting for over 73 standard years, suddenly began negotiating. Not just negotiating, but finding complex solutions that benefited both sides. "This doesn't make sense," Jae-won muttered, his skin shifting to a deep purple of concentration. Hai-Jin nodded. "Exactly. Look at the next file." Another report showed a similar pattern. This time, it was a resource dispute in the Sigma Quadrant. Again, a small human team appeared. Again, the conflict transformed from a potential war into a collaborative solution. "They're not fighting," Hai-Jin said slowly. "They're solving problems." A librarian approached them, a tall, insectoid creature with multiple translucent wings. "Research access requires special permission." The librarian clicked through its translation device. Jae-won quickly closed the files. "We're just studying," he said smoothly. The librarian's antennae twitched suspiciously but moved away. "We need more information," Hai-Jin whispered. "Something doesn't add up." They knew they were stepping into dangerous territory. The Galactic Council did not look kindly on those who asked too many questions about humans. Entire research careers had been ended for less. But curiosity was a powerful force. As they left the library, neither noticed the small tracking device that had been activated on their digital tablets. Someone was watching their research, someone who did not want the truth about humans to be discovered. Outside, the Academy's artificial sun began to set, casting long shadows across the alien landscape. Somewhere in the vast archives, more secrets about humans waited to be uncovered. Jae-won looked at Hai-Jin. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. She smiled, a smile that suggested nothing would stop her from finding the truth. "Absolutely," Hai-Jin replied. The encrypted data chip looked like nothing special. It was small, about the size of Jae-won's smallest finger, with a dull gray surface that seemed almost boring. Most students would have walked past it without a second glance. But Hai-Jin was not most students. She found the chip hidden in a forgotten corner of the Academy's restricted archives. It was wedged between two massive data storage units, covered in a thin layer of dust. When she picked it up, her crystal-like skin tingled, something she had learned to trust over years of research. "Jae-won," she called through her communication device, "meet me in the secure lab." The secure lab was a small room deep within the Academy's research wing. Designed to block all external signals and prevent unauthorized data scans, it was the perfect place for careful investigation. Jae-won arrived quickly, his skin shifting between nervous greens and excited blues. "What did you find?" he asked. Hai-Jin connected the chip to a specialized decryption device. Lines of code began to scroll across the screen. Most of it looked like nonsense, random strings of numbers and symbols that meant nothing to an untrained eye. But Hai-Jin was anything but untrained. Her fingers moved quickly across the interface. Layers of encryption began to peel away. Some were simple, basic security protocols used by junior administrators. Others were complex, with multiple levels of protection that would stop most researchers. Hours passed. The artificial lighting in the lab remained constant, but time seemed to stretch and compress. "Look," Hai-Jin said suddenly. The first coherent file appeared. It was a military report, but unlike any they had seen before. This wasn't about battles or weapons. It was about something much stranger. The report detailed a conflict resolution process conducted by a small human team. But it wasn't a typical diplomatic mission. The humans had arrived at a planetary dispute between two species, the Orcs and the Lyrian Confederation. According to the report, the conflict had been going on for decades. It involved complex resource rights, territorial claims, and generations of mutual hatred. Traditional diplomatic efforts had failed hundreds of times. The human team consisted of just 5 individuals. They weren't military leaders or high-ranking diplomats. The file listed their backgrounds: an economist, a social psychologist, a community organizer, an environmental scientist, and a local government administrator. What happened next defied all standard conflict resolution protocols. Instead of negotiating borders or fighting, the humans did something completely unexpected. They started by listening, not just to the leaders, but to ordinary citizens from both sides of the conflict. They mapped out the real problems: water resources, agricultural challenges, economic inequalities, things that went far deeper than the surface-level territorial disputes. Then they proposed a solution that nobody saw coming: a complete redesign of the shared planetary system. Not a compromise, but a total restructuring that addressed the root causes of the conflict. They created new economic zones, shared resource management systems, and educational exchange programs. Within 2 standard years, the conflict was completely resolved. Jaehwan's skin turned a deep, intense blue, the color of pure amazement. "They didn't fight," he whispered. "They solved the problem." Hai-Jin nodded, but she noticed something else. At the bottom of the report, there was a small notation, a classification marker that made her breath catch. Top secret. Reason for Galactic Conflict Intervention Ban. They had found something big. Something that could change everything they understood about galactic politics. And someone definitely did not want them to see it. The transmission was old. Really old. Dated nearly 200 years back, the digital file had been carefully hidden in layers of encryption. Most researchers would have given up after the first few security layers. But Hai-Jin was not most researchers. She and Jaehwan worked through the night, their alien bodies needing little rest. The Academy's research lab was silent except for the soft hum of decryption machines and the occasional click of data processors. "Got it," Hai-Jin whispered. The transmission came from a small sector near the outer rim of explored space. It was a detailed report about a territorial dispute that should have been a typical military conflict. But nothing about this report was typical. 2 alien confederacies, the Meridian Alliance and the Centauri Cooperative, had been building up to a massive war. Their conflict involved 3 star systems, thousands of planetary settlements, and generations of deep-seated hatred. The report began with standard military language: troop movements, resource calculations, potential battle strategies. But then something unusual happened. A small human diplomatic team of just 12 individuals was accidentally included in the initial negotiation process. No one was quite sure how they got there. The official records were fuzzy, with large sections conveniently missing. What followed defied all expectations. Instead of discussing military strategies, the humans started asking questions, strange questions that seemed to have nothing to do with the conflict. They wanted to know about water resources, about agricultural challenges, about the economic systems of both civilizations. The Meridian representatives were confused. The Centauri delegates were frustrated. Military leaders on both sides expected the talks to break down at any moment. But they didn't break down. They transformed. The humans didn't talk about fighting. They talked about solving problems. They brought detailed studies showing how the war would destroy resources that both civilizations desperately needed. They presented alternative solutions that would benefit both sides. One human, a woman with short brown hair and what seemed like an impossible amount of patience, spent 3 standard days just listening. Not arguing, not defending, just listening. She asked questions that went deeper than any diplomatic team had ever asked before. Questions about history, about culture, about the real reasons behind the conflict. Slowly, something amazing began to happen. The military leaders stopped talking about war. They started talking about solutions. The humans didn't fight. They didn't use weapons. They used something far more powerful: understanding. By the end of the 2-week conference, the conflict was over. Not through a military victory, not through a compromise, but through a complete reimagining of how these two civilizations could work together. Jae-won's skin shifted to a deep, intense blue, the color of pure amazement. "They didn't fight," he said again, a phrase he had been repeating since their research began. Hai-jin nodded, but she noticed something else in the transmission, a small note at the bottom of the official report. Recommend immediate removal of human diplomatic teams from future conflict resolution processes. Signed by the Galactic Conflict Resolution Committee. They were banned, Hai-jin whispered, not because they were violent, but because they were too effective. Outside the research lab, the artificial lights of the Academy continued to burn. Somewhere in the vast archives of galactic history, more secrets about humans waited to be discovered. And Jae-won and Hai-jin were just getting started. The research wall looked like a maze of madness. Hai-jin had covered an entire section of the Academy's private research room with digital displays and holographic projections. Each projection showed a different conflict where humans had been involved. Red strings connected various points, creating a complex web of information. Jae-won stared at the wall, his multiple eyes blinking in different sequences. His skin shifted between colors: green of concentration, blue of excitement, purple of deep thinking. "Look at the pattern," Hai-jin said. She touched a display, and multiple files expanded. Each file showed a different conflict from the past 2 centuries. Short conflicts, long conflicts, resource wars, cultural disputes, political challenges. The pattern was impossible to ignore. In every single conflict, something strange happened when humans were involved. They didn't fight like other species. They didn't think about conflicts the way anyone else did. Take the Orion-Proxima border dispute. It had been going on for 127 standard years. Millions had died. Entire planetary systems had been destroyed. Then 12 humans arrived as part of a research team. Within 6 months, the conflict was resolved. They didn't use weapons. They didn't use traditional diplomacy. Instead, they did something completely different. The humans mapped out the real problems. Not the surface-level arguments about territory, but the deep, hidden issues that had been causing the conflict for generations. Water resources, economic inequalities, cultural misunderstandings. Things that went far deeper than simple border lines. Then they created solutions that nobody had considered before. Another example, the Sigma Quadrant Trade War. 3 different species had been fighting for control of critical trade routes. The conflict had lasted decades. Thousands of ships had been destroyed. Entire economic systems had been ruined. 12 humans arrived as economic advisors. They didn't negotiate trade routes. They'd redesigned the entire economic system. They created new trade networks that benefited all 3 species. They found ways for everyone to win. "They're not fighting," Jae-won repeated, a phrase that had become their research motto. "They're solving problems." Hai-jin nodded, But she saw something more, something deeper. Humans didn't see conflicts the way other species did. Where most saw walls, humans saw bridges. Where others saw impossible barriers, humans saw opportunities. They didn't just resolve conflicts, they transformed them. The Galactic Conflict Resolution Committee had a choice. They could continue to allow humans to participate in diplomatic missions, or they could remove them completely. They chose removal because humans were dangerous, not because they were violent, but because they could make entire systems of conflict obsolete. A small note on one of the displays caught Jaewan's eye, a classified report from the Galactic Council. The title made his skin turn a deep, intense blue. Recommendation: permanent removal of human diplomatic teams from conflict resolution processes. They were banned, Hai-Jin whispered, because they were too good at solving problems. Outside the research room, the academy continued its daily routine. Alien students walked past, unaware that two researchers were uncovering a truth that could change everything they understood about galactic conflicts. Jae-won looked at Hai-Jin. "What do we do now?" he asked. She smiled, a smile that suggested their research was just beginning. Professor Jae-won's private office was not what most students expected. Instead of fancy alien technology, it looked almost simple. Old books lined wooden shelves. Strange objects from different planets sat on carefully arranged tables. A large window showed the academy's purple-orange sky. Hai-Jin and Jae-won sat carefully, their bodies tense with excitement and nervousness. "I know why you're here," the professor said before they could speak. His translator device clicked softly. "You want to know about humans." The professor pulled out an old file. It was not digital, not a hologram. An actual paper document, something so rare it was almost a museum piece. The edges were yellow. The paper looked fragile. "Humans are not like other species," Professor Jae-won began. "They see the world differently." He explained something that had been hidden in classified reports for generations. Humans didn't just solve problems. They understood problems in a way no other species could. Most alien civilizations looked at conflicts like math problems. Simple equations. Add this resource. Subtract that territory. Multiply by military power. Divide by diplomatic pressure. Humans saw conflicts as living things, complex systems with many moving parts. Take a water shortage, for example. Most species would fight over water sources. Humans would look at why the water was scarce. They would study the entire ecosystem. They would find solutions that helped everyone. The professor showed them a psychological profile. It was different from anything they had seen before. Where other species saw boundaries, humans saw connections. Where others saw limits, humans saw possibilities. They didn't just think outside the box. They didn't even recognize the box existed. One report detailed a conflict on a desert planet. 3 different species were fighting over limited water resources. Traditional diplomatic efforts had failed for decades. A small human team arrived. They didn't talk about water rights or territorial claims. Instead, they studied the entire planetary ecosystem. They developed new water collection technologies. They created agricultural systems that worked with the planet's harsh environment. Within 2 years, the conflict was over. Not through fighting, but through understanding. They solved problems by understanding the entire system, Professor Jae-won said. Not just the surface problem, but the deep, hidden connections. Jae-won's skin shifted to a deep blue of concentration. "Why were they banned?" he asked. The professor's eyes, multiple and strange, looked very tired. "Because they were too dangerous," he said simply. "A species that can solve problems without creating new problems is the most dangerous thing in the universe." Hai-Jin leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "Imagine a species that can look at a 100-year war and see not enemies, but people with complex needs," the professor explained. "A species that doesn't want to win. A species that wants everyone to win." The classified reports told a strange story. Humans didn't create peace through weakness. They created peace through deep understanding. Other species saw conflict as a way to gain power. Humans saw conflict as a problem to be solved. The Galactic Council was afraid, Professor Jaiwan said quietly. Not of human weapons, but of human understanding. Outside the office window, the Academy's artificial sun began to set. Purple and orange mixed in the sky. Another day of learning was ending. But for Haijin and Jaiwan, everything was just beginning. The communication room was deep inside the Academy. Special shields blocked all outside signals. Heavy security systems protected every inch of the space. Haijin's fingers moved quickly across the digital interface. Each movement was careful, precise. She was trying to access something no student had ever seen before. Direct communication logs from the Galactic Council. Jae-won watched her, his skin shifting between nervous green and excited blue. "Are you sure about this?" he whispered. She didn't answer. Her focus was complete. Suddenly, a file opened. Encrypted communications began to scroll across the screen. Most would look like nonsense, but Haijin could read between the lines. The truth was shocking. Humans weren't banned from galactic conflicts because they were violent. They were banned because they were too good at stopping violence. One communication caught their attention. It was marked as top secret, dated almost 150 years ago. The language was careful, diplomatic, but underneath the careful words, something else was happening. The Galactic Council was afraid. Not of human weapons, not of human military power. They were afraid of human problem-solving. In every conflict where humans were involved, something strange happened. The conflict didn't just end. It transformed. Take the Proxima Orion border dispute. It had been going on for generations. Millions of lives lost. Entire planetary systems destroyed. Then 12 humans arrived. They didn't fight. They didn't negotiate in the traditional way. Instead, they did something completely unexpected. They studied the entire conflict. Not just the surface problems, but the deep, hidden issues that had been causing the war for generations. Water resources, economic systems, cultural misunderstandings, things that went far deeper than simple border lines. Then they created solutions that nobody had considered before. Another communication showed a similar pattern. The Sigma Quadrant Trade War, 3 different species fighting for control of critical trade routes. The conflict had lasted decades. 12 humans arrived as economic advisors. They didn't just negotiate. They'd redesigned entire economic systems. They found ways for everyone to win. Not just some, everyone. The Galactic Council saw a terrifying possibility. A species that could make entire systems of conflict obsolete. One secret document was crystal clear. The title made Jae-won's skin turn a deep, intense blue. Recommendation: permanent removal of human diplomatic teams from all conflict resolution processes. The reason was simple. Humans didn't just resolve conflicts. They eliminated the reasons for conflicts to exist. Most species saw war as a way to gain power. Humans saw conflicts as problems to be solved. The communications told a strange story. The Galactic Council wasn't protecting other species from humans. They were protecting their own power structures. A system built on conflict cannot survive if someone keeps solving the conflicts. Jae-won looked at Haijin. They were banned, he said quietly, because they were too dangerous. She nodded, but her eyes showed something else. Not fear, excitement. They had discovered something big, something that could change everything. Outside the communication room, the Academy continued its daily routine. Alien students walked past, unaware that 2 researchers were uncovering a truth that could reshape everything they understood about galactic politics. The ultimate deterrence wasn't a weapon. It was understanding. The research room was silent. Holographic displays covered every wall. Thousands of documents hung in the air, evidence of humanity's strange approach to conflict. Jae-won and Haijin stood in the center, their bodies tense with discovery. "We can't just keep this secret," Hai-Jin said. Her crystal-like skin flickered with different colors. Blue of excitement, green of nervousness, purple of deep thinking. The evidence was clear. Humans weren't monsters. They were problem solvers. Jae-Hwan's multiple eyes blinked in different sequences. If we share this, he said slowly, everything changes. The documents told a story nobody wanted to hear. Humans had been removed from galactic conflicts not because they were violent, but because they were too good at solving problems. One holographic file showed a planetary conflict that had lasted 127 years. 3 different species fighting over limited resources. Entire generations had known nothing but war. 12 humans arrived. They didn't use weapons. They didn't fight. Instead, they did something completely different. They studied the entire system. They looked at water resources. They examined agricultural challenges. They mapped out economic inequalities, things that went deeper than simple territorial claims. Within 2 years, the conflict was over. Not through fighting, not through compromise, but through complete understanding. Another file showed a trade dispute between 4 different star systems. Decades of economic warfare, millions of lives destroyed, resources wasted. 12 humans arrived as economic advisors. They didn't negotiate trade routes. They redesigned entire economic systems. They found ways for everyone to benefit. Not just some, everyone. The Galactic Council doesn't want solutions, Hai-Jin whispered. They want control. The ethical challenge was clear. They had discovered something huge. A truth that could change everything about how different species understood conflict. Jae-Hwan's skin turned a deep blue, the color of total concentration. If we share this, he said, we challenge everything. The Academy's rules were clear. Certain research was forbidden. Certain truths were not to be spoken. The Galactic Council protected its power carefully. But Hai-Jin and Jae-Hwan had gone too far to stop now. They weren't just looking at historical documents. They were looking at a different way of solving problems. A way that didn't create winners and losers. A way that found solutions for everyone. One document showed something amazing. A human team that resolved a water shortage not by fighting, but by developing new technology. They helped 3 different species create water collection systems that worked for everyone. Another showed how humans solved a food production problem by understanding the entire ecosystem. Not just looking at the surface issue, but understanding the deep connections. They see connections, Jae-Hwan said. Where others see walls, they see bridges. Hai-Jin nodded, but she knew the risks. Sharing this research could destroy their academic careers. The Galactic Council did not look kindly on those who challenged its version of history. Outside the research room, the Academy continued its daily routine. Alien students walked past, unaware that 2 researchers were holding the key to a massive truth. We have a choice, Hai-Jin said. Jae-Hwan looked at her. His multiple eyes showed something between fear and excitement. We can stay silent, she continued, or we can tell the truth. The holographic displays continued to spin. Thousands of documents showing a simple, powerful truth. Humans weren't banned because they were dangerous. They were banned because they were too good at solving problems. The Great Hall of the Interstellar Academy was packed. Hundreds of alien students sat in carefully arranged rows. Professors from different star systems filled the front sections. The air hummed with translation devices and nervous energy. Hai-Jin stood at the center of the stage. Her crystal-like skin shifted between colors. Blue of determination, green of nervousness, purple of deep thinking. Jae-Hwan watched from the side, his multiple eyes blinking in different sequences. Today, she began, her voice clear and strong. We will talk about humans. A collective gasp swept through the hall. Humans were not a topic for public discussion. Their name was rarely spoken. Their history was carefully hidden. Holographic displays began to show the evidence. Classified documents, secret communications, years of research that had been carefully hidden. The truth was simple but powerful. Humans weren't banned from galactic conflicts because they were violent. They were banned because they were too good at solving problems. One display showed a planetary conflict that had lasted 127 years. 3 different species fighting over limited resources. Entire generations had known nothing but war. Then 12 humans arrived. They didn't use weapons. They didn't fight. They studied the entire system. Water resources, agricultural challenges, economic inequalities. Things that went deeper than simple territorial claims. Within 2 years, the conflict was over. Not through fighting, not through compromise, but through complete understanding. Another display showed a trade dispute between 4 different star systems. Decades of economic warfare, millions of lives destroyed, resources wasted. 12 humans arrived as economic advisors. They didn't negotiate trade routes. They redesigned entire economic systems. They found ways for everyone to benefit. Not just some, everyone. The Galactic Council watched from the back of the hall. High-ranking officials sat silently, their expressions unreadable. Humans see connections, Hygiene continued. Where others see walls, they see bridges. Where others see limits, they see possibilities. More evidence appeared. Conflict after conflict. Humans arriving. Problems being solved. Not through violence, but through understanding. One document showed how humans helped 3 different species create water collection systems that worked for everyone. Another showed how they solved a food production problem by understanding the entire ecosystem. The hall was completely silent. Jahuan's skin turned a deep blue, the color of pure excitement. This was more than a research presentation. This was a challenge to everything they knew. The Galactic Council members began to shift uncomfortably. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid. We have been told that humans are dangerous, Hygiene said. But the truth is different. They are dangerous only to systems that depend on conflict. More documents appeared. Classified communications, secret reports. A clear pattern emerged. Humans weren't removed from conflicts because they were violent. They were removed because they could make entire systems of conflict obsolete. A senior council member stood up. This research is. But Hygiene was not finished. This is the truth, she said. Humans don't create peace through weakness. They create peace through understanding. The hall erupted. Some students cheered. Some looked shocked. The Galactic Council members looked like they might explode. Outside the hall, the Academy's artificial sun began to set. Purple and orange mixed in the sky. Everything was changing. Professor Daiwan watched from the back of the hall. A small smile played on his lips. Sometimes, he thought, the truth is the most powerful weapon of all. The next generation would never see conflicts the same way again.